episode of the Mindfully Curious podcast. My name is Steph, and I have the pleasure and honor of being the host for this space. So, for today's episode, I am having a conversation with Elliot Lance. He is a doctor of physical therapy. He's also a content creator, an athlete, an entrepreneur, and most importantly, a creative rowdy rebel. I was really curious to ask Elliot how he decided to become a doctor of physical therapy. It seems like basically anything that is becoming a doctor just automatically to me sounds like a lot of commitment to a lot of schooling, and to also being part of a very strict system of Western medicine or medicine in the United States. Elliot has been one of my allies on my own personal health and fitness journey. As you guys may already know, I was athletic when I was a child because I was forced into practicing sports, and when I moved out of my parents' house and I was a young adult living on my own, I kind of just took my health and my fitness for granted, and I abused my body in so many ways, from having a shitty diet to staying up partying way too late and too often and sometimes too hard, to pushing my body to do things that it had never trained for and doing them in a reckless way. Obviously, this kind of led to me needing surgical intervention to damage some of the repair done to my body by being reckless, and kind of like a cascade of depression and weight gain and little ticky-tacky illnesses that just came on board as I just lost the connection to my health and kind of gave up on my body. So I am very excited to share the resources, the tools that people like Elliot are able to help somebody who is on a rehabilitation journey trying to find their health, or like he would say, putting in the work to take your health back into your own hands. And during this episode, he's going to talk to us about his journey, how he found his way over and over, and what he has found the most helpful when it comes to that, taking your health into your own hands. And I'm just gonna ruin it for you. The mega trick here is self-love, compassion, and a mindset shift. Without further ado, here's our conversation for today. Super happy that you're here. Much love, everyone. Elliot, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. I know before we started recording, I kind of told you all of the things that I'm curious and just like admire about you. So I won't repeat those, neither for you or the audience. But thank you for being here. And so where should we start?
Good question. Yeah, first of all, Steph, thanks for having us. Love the dog. We're really excited to be here. We can start wherever you want.
Well, as I already mentioned to you and everybody else, you're an awesome human. You are a creative person and a athlete and a doctor. And I was just saying that that's kind of not, mixes that you would normally say are very common. So how did you become the magical unicorn that you are today?
Yeah. I played baseball in college. I knew in some form or fashion I wanted to do something in the athletic, fitness, health realm when I grew up, right? As if I feel like I still haven't grown up, but I knew I wanted to do something, in this realm where I could just help people move, just because I knew that was such a big part of my life growing up. And I just wanted to, share that with everyone I could. And so I went to college thinking I would be like a true on MD doctor, physician, and try to
Damn.
help that way. And as I got through it, or as I got probably halfway into it, I realized that I I love not having to study 24/7. B, I wanted to make more of an impact in terms of like health and movement. Because at the end of the day, like that's where I think people can really, really, really make a difference, whether that just be exercising on their own or, recovering from an injury, right? Our healthcare system, they spend a lot of time and energy on, drugs and surgeries and, the really nitty gritty part of medicine. And I think we're leaving, health and rehab and, the back end of medicine. I think right now our society just leaves a little bit to be desired with that stuff. And so I wanted to step in and make an impact there. So that's kind of what drove me to be a physical therapist, right? I didn't have some like crazy injury and then a physical therapist helped me through it and it changed my life. Like, no, I mean, knock on wood, I've been very fortunate to not experience a whole lot of injuries. Like I've broken bones and things like that, but nothing crazy where I've, you know, been in a car accident and couldn't walk for a time, right? So yeah, so just kind of coming back to my athletic background and wanting to always be moving and wanting to help other people move, it just kind of seemed like the balance between being a doctor and wanting people to move, physical therapy just made the most sense.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. So you're also a highly logical person.
I am. That is my I'm trying to remember my what's the archetype? What's the Myers-Briggs? I'm like,
Oh, like the
yeah,
ENTPF
yeah,
or
I'm like ENTJ, which is like thinking things through, being a, you know, extrovert, being a someone who can lead and take charge of a situation by just like steady climbing, checking things off the box and just being really logical. So
oh my goodness, that's so awesome because I do too love just finding out things. And honestly, just mainly driven by curiosity. But
yeah,
since I am like the person that's always there, I'm like, well, I can always point that curiosity right back here. So that's
yeah,
always good.
love that.
So, I mean, you talk about your love for movement and your love for like wanting to be active. When did that start? Like, was that something that you were just passionate about since you were young, or how did that show up for you?
Yeah, good question. I would probably say it started with baseball. It started with sports. I was fortunate enough to play a lot of sports. My parents were very they allowed me to do whatever I wanted. I had a very blessed childhood. And yeah, they let me kind of experience different things, whatever I wanted to play, whatever I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity, which I'm unbelievably thankful for. And I feel like that's kind of where it started. And then as I got older, as I started to understand a little bit more about kind of healthcare and how I can actually use the things that I like to help other people, that kind of started me down the medical train and like trying to figure out like, okay, like where do I fit in here, right? Like I obviously want to help people, and I want to do it in some form or fashion in the health industry because I mean a lot of people can help people, but I felt like my calling was in the health industry. So like trying to kind of match up where can I make the biggest impacts. And I kind of fell into physical therapy and started learning more about it. And then you have to like shadow physical therapists and see if it's actually for you before you apply and things like that. And everything just lined up. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I would say.
That's really cool. I also think it's really cool that you just said you started playing baseball when you were a kid. So that was good. But then I think a lot of us, and by us, I mean humans, kind of have that opportunity to do sports when you're young. But
Right.
at least for me, the first thing that I was kind of forced into it by my parents. They were just like, you have to do sports. And my dad was like a big sports guy. He was a football player in college. So he was super passionate about sports. And in my house, you did not have a choice. And the first thing I did when I moved out of my parents' house was say, oh, well, I don't have to go train anymore. So I'm not going to do anything now except for, whatever crazy things I want to do. How did you continue that practice throughout like your life? Because I mean, you continued playing baseball in college, and then even you, or I think I read this on your blog, like through grad school, you kind of were missing that like competitiveness and being part of a team, which led you to join another kind of sport.
Yeah. Yeah. So intro into, first of all, sorry, it's super loud in the gym right now. I don't know
Dude,
if y'all can hear that, but that's what we're dealing with right now. So I apologize for that. But yeah, so I was a big competitor, growing up, like baseball and otherwise. Like when you get to the level of trying to like play a sport in high school, in college, it becomes more than a game. Like it becomes more than just for fun, right? It's you have invested so much time and so much money into that sport, that part of your life, that like it becomes very personal. It becomes very much, hey, like this is no longer for fun. Like, yes, the game is fun, but that's not the reason we're playing anymore, right? The reason we're playing, at that level is often to compete and to win and to do things like that. And so that's that baseball being so heavily ingrained in my life and getting to a point where like it was, I mean, in college, like it's your job, it's your part-time job. And so that just that instilled this level of just kind of competitiveness or wanting to push myself to be better than I was the day before. That kind of really started in high school and in college. And then all of a sudden college ends, I didn't get drafted to go play like professional baseball. So right then, I have no real outlet for that competitiveness that's been a part of my life for 8-9 years, right? So it was a big like, it kind of throws you off for a year or two, where like, man, like this whole part of my life no longer exists. And so like you're just kind of wondering, like I worked out and I did, like I basically did my old baseball workouts trying to like get some semblance of this once feeling I had, and it just never really clicked. Like I didn't feel like I was training for anything. It was just really hard to find myself in the gym. And so that kind of led me down a path to trying to figure out like, okay, something's missing. I'm not sure what it is. How do I find it again? And a friend of mine suggested that I try CrossFit, and so it was like I tried CrossFit. I went to my first CrossFit class ever at Rhapsody, which I know you're a member of as well. So I tried CrossFit. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect. I had honestly no clue. Like I'd never really done a lot of those movements. So for me, who movement has been such a big part of my life, I was actually felt like a fish out of water. Like I felt different. And in terms of movement in the gym, I had never felt that way. So it was interesting. I felt it was kind of the newness, and then the feeling of being able to have a goal during a workout, or have a goal, for myself, like, oh man, like I want to get 10 pull-ups in a row, right? And like having that goal again, having something to strive for, right? And like even when I talk about like competitiveness, like it doesn't even really have to be like with another person. Like it's really more internal. It's really more, I want to be better than I was a week ago. Like I'm almost competing with myself in the fact that like I'm just trying to get better. Um,
okay, guys, sorry, I have to interrupt you because that right there, like, we need to drop the mic for this. That, like, this is such a key that you just dropped. competitiveness against yourself. Like focus on competitiveness against yourself, because at the end of the day I feel like even when you're competing against others, it's through competing with yourself on a daily basis, like when you show up to training or whatever, that you become better. And if you're better in your game, of course, whenever you get put into a game with others, you are going to be able to bring your best self. And that's how we win, is exactly by competing with ourselves. Now, quick other pause talking about being rude.
Yeah,
My dog is super rude and she's hella asking me to let her out. So I will be right back.
do it.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I used to work at an animal shelter. So I ended up with like the worst dogs.
They're cute.
Thank you, man. So that being said, you literally just dropped like the biggest gold bomb there, competing against yourself. And dude, again, so awesome that you just well, actually, did you just kind of figure that out on your own, or did you like read anything or
It kind of just came when you're super competitive, you realize that there are other people in the world that are not super competitive. And if you go around just trying to, like, especially like at Rhapsody or somewhere else, like if you just go around trying to compete with everyone, like you kind of look around and realize, I don't know, no one's really competing with you. Like no one's really caring what you do. They're all just trying to get better themselves, right? And so it kind of makes you take a step back and be like, okay, who am I doing this for? Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this to impress other people? Am I doing this to make a statement? Or am I doing this for me? Am I doing this to either better myself or to fulfill some part of me that I've been missing, right? So in my sense, it kind of flipped from competing with other people to now competing in the sense that I'm just trying to make myself better. And it kind of just like slowly over time grew to be that mantra instead of I'm going to compete against you because I want to beat you in this workout or in this baseball game or whatever.
That's awesome. And it kind of sounds to me like there's this, what we're calling competing here is like a two-parted thing, because the game, let's call, like whenever you play a sport, it's like, yes, it is competition, but it's also like skill building, camaraderie. And most importantly, when you mix all of those, I feel like it's play, and that's something that I never thought I would be like, if you asked me 2 years ago, would I ever consider joining a CrossFit gym? I would say I would rather get run over by a train.
Yeah.
And now I can tell you that I love it, just because when I go in there, like the energy is so playful that I thrive in it. Like I love being playful, and the fact that I can be playful in a gym, like
Yeah.
that's just amazing to me, because that's never been my experience really. It's been more like, if you're training, this is serious shit and you need to buckle down. And I don't like that.
No, yeah, Rhapsody far and away has brought that out of myself as well. Rhapsody does a phenomenal job with what you just said right there. They do a great job at making it very inclusive, very welcoming, and bringing kind of CrossFit, whatever you want to call it, like bringing it off its pedestal and making it very accessible to everyone. They do a great job at it.
And dude, honestly, that's kind of my experience with you making healthcare and what you do, physical therapy, fun. It's like, oh, we're gonna play at what can we do to make you feel better and to make you be able to do the silly shit that you want to do. Like, why do I want to do a handstand? Like, why not? I just want to see if I can do it, and like how hard it is and what the process looks like. And again, that to me is play. Figuring shit out is play. And it kind of sounds like you might be on the same type of boat.
Yeah, I like it. It's like at the end of the day, physical therapy is getting someone from point A to point B, right? And whether that's them wanting to play or them wanting to, do a handstand or whatever it is, it really doesn't matter, right? It's how, as a doctor of physical therapy, can I get their body and their mind prepared to do X activity, prepared to get to point B, right? And it just takes a lot of thought and a lot of preparation. Like, yeah, there's the medical side of it. There's like, okay, like we need to know what tissues are involved and how, like, what the tissue healing process looks like, and how do we either expedite that, or how do we protect it if it's necessary. Trying to figure out all those things, and then also combining it with your goals, what you want to do, your mindset. And like, maybe you just got laid off of work, right? Like that's something that, like, medically, that was not covered in PT school, but like, that shit matters. Like, it matters where you are in your season of life too. So what physical therapy is and what healthcare should be is looking at the person, the whole person, and trying to get them from point A to point B, and like, how can I help? And sometimes, like, there are sessions where, like, yeah, we're working with this girl's ACL who, just got off of surgery. And honestly, like, she's feeling really overwhelmed. She can't walk. And that whole session, like, we might not touch a single weight. We might not do a single squat, but we might sit there for 90 minutes and just talk, because honestly, that's probably what she needs at that moment. So it needs to be way more holistic, way more, encompassing the entire person than it is right now.
So when you just said somebody might have just been laid off and the mindful component matters, and then you said that wasn't taught in that's not what they taught me in physical therapy school. So where did you learn that? Like, how did you, because I mean, I know mindfulness is kind of like a hot word right now,
Yeah.
and we all surely have access to it, but how did you find like the want to be like, oh, like I learn all these things, but I also know there's that, and I'm gonna mash them together?
Yeah. It's, I don't know if I ever learned it, quote unquote. Like, it's, it probably revolves around two things, right? It's a, being a people person and just understanding like social cues, and like understanding, like, if I am on one of my 10-minute monologues talking about the hamstring, and I'm looking at this person in the eyes, and like, they are obviously either disengaged or, visibly upset, I need to be like, in my mind, I'm like, stop, Elliot. Stop talking about the hamstring. It probably doesn't matter right now. Ask this person how they're doing. And right, and like, talk about that. And so there's like an element of like trying to read people and try just like basic social cues that I think are super important. Obviously not taught. I don't know where you would learn that. It's probably just experience. Um, and then beyond that, like, I think it's an element of caring about people, and having the time to actually care about people, right? So like, for example, I would say 99.9% of physical therapists, chiropractors, and all the healthcare providers that like see patients face to face, in some form or fashion, they care about people. They likely got into their job because they care about people and they want people to thrive and do better. But so, like, a lot of times, especially in our healthcare system now, it's, they have to see, 4 patients in an hour, and they might want to help you. They might want to have that one-on-one connection, mindfulness talk with that patient, but genuinely, they probably just don't have time. And like, it's not that they don't want to. It's, hey, my insurance company or my clinic is making me see someone in 7 minutes. So I'm going to give you the basics. We're going to cover your knee and your hamstring, whatever the issue is, and we're going to move on. And I feel like a lot of times when they're kind of forced into that hole, that's what ends up happening. And so they miss out on this whole other facet of therapy, trying to get someone from point A to point B.
And that makes so much sense, because when we were talking about how did you learn how to do this like awesome, beautiful mix of being creative and adding like just really focusing on the person and like getting to know them and seeing what they really need right now, not just going like, okay, well, this is what your insurance says you need and I only have 5 minutes.
Right.
And I know I made the example earlier that it's pretty sad to see that the healthcare system is kind of being treated just like the industrial agriculture chickens, you know, just like, okay, quantity, not quality, because you would think that when it comes down to health and wellness and just like the overall happiness of everybody, we would be willing to give that a little bit extra like time and love, you know, because Jesus, like
Definitely think so.
we're creating our own world. Wow. That's hardcore. So you really are a rebel then. So you see this system, you're like graduating from PT school, you see the way the system is, and then you decide to do something super brave, which
Yeah,
is start your own business.
it's super brave. Did it in the middle of COVID. Was not sure what it was going to look like. Um, I was fortunate. So during PT school, little background. During PT school at MUSC, where I went, you have 4 clinical rotations, meaning you go out into the community and you basically shadow or work under a licensed physical therapist, right? So I have 4. You have 4 of those during your time. Each one is around 3 months, so it's like your whole last year basically of PT school is shadowing, is rotating, is getting hands-on experience treating actual people while being supervised by your licensed PT. And so my first 3 rotations, so 9 months, were at like insurance clinics, what normal people think of as physical therapy, like they're on a massage table, some person is moving their limbs around, and then they might do some bands and some light dumbbell exercises, right?
Get the
Um,
heat pad on.
yeah, right. Heat, ice, e-stim, the whole thing, right? And so that was my first 3 rotations. That was my first 9 months of experiencing PT. And like, you sit back and like I know, I'm sitting there watching my CI, watching my instructor, the licensed therapist that I'm under. I'm watching them, move these people's joints around, like doing all the things, like putting them on ice for 20 minutes and then running to the other person, putting them on heat for 20 minutes. And then, oh, yeah, we have a third person right now. So we're just like scrambling. And I'm sitting there as a student being like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, how are we, like, is anyone here getting good health care? Like, I don't feel like I know that I'm not, like looking at each person's like plan, like there's no way that we are putting the time and energy we need into each one. Like it's not humanly possible. Like they're at an they're at an impossible point, because they have to see this many people. Like they're just stuck. And so like you see all that, and you're like, man, I don't know, I don't know what the problem is, but I know that this is not right. This is not the answer, whatever it is, right? And so then my last rotation, I had the opportunity to go up to Boston. See, man, I had the opportunity to go up to Boston and rotate under a physical therapist who had a cash-based clinic. Just like the one I run now, right? We modeled a lot of what we do after them. And so they had a cash-based, and he was in like a big gym. It didn't look like any physical therapy that I'd ever experienced in the past. And this person was just a real person, and he would see maybe 4 people in a day. And I'm like coming from my last rotation where I saw 18 people a day. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I
That's
love,
more than double.
oh yeah, it's quadruple, right? Like it's crazy, right? And so instead of each person getting 20 minutes in the 18 on my last rotation, each person got like 90 minutes with that therapist because he had the time, right? He had the time to actually talk, like, and figure out and problem solve and game plan. And I'm like, wow, A, 90 minutes with a doctor of physical therapy, like, man, I don't know what's going on, but they can help. They can help talk through and get you to a point, and y'all together can come up with a really awesome plan in 90 minutes. Whereas in the other situation, the therapist that's scrambling around, 20 minutes per patient, like that's really, really hard to do. And so like I got to see what physical therapy could be. And like once I did 3 months of rotating under him up in Boston, like I was like, I don't know if I can go back. I don't know if I can go back to seeing 18 people a day. I've already experienced this. I don't have to get absolutely burnt out seeing 18 people. I can see 4 people. I can change their lives instead of trying. If you chase 18 rabbits, you're probably not going to catch any of them. Whereas I could probably catch 4 rabbits. Like I could probably help 4 people today, and it just makes it way more manageable on my end. The patient, enjoy it way more. You feel like this doctor actually gives a shit because he can spend the time and like work through your problems. It just works on so many more levels. And so I was sitting there like, dude, I can't go back. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do physical therapy in that system. Like it's just I would die. I would hate it. Having the experience that I had just come off of. So in Charleston, which is where I wanted to live, there is one cash-based physical therapy clinic, and it's called Made to Move. It's on Daniel Island, and so my girlfriend, who is also a physical therapist, right out of school, she had a rotation the same time I had my rotation in Boston. She had a rotation at Made to Move, and they hired her right off the rip, which was amazing. I mean, I was ecstatic for her, but like internally, I was like jealous. I was like, dang, I wish I got hired
The
by Made.
competitiveness comes out.
Yeah, and I was like, ah, you know. But obviously, we were super excited for that. She's crushing it there. She's really really loving it. And I was like, okay, I can't work for Made to Move. They just hired someone. That's the only cash-based clinic in Charleston. My only option is how can I still do this? Can I logistically start this business? Would it be profitable? What does it look like? All of those things. Like again, not something they teach you in physical therapy school.
Why not?
So I started reading. I just started trying to learn about like, all right, how do I create a business? How do I start this? Like, is this something that's actually sustainable? And so while I had just passed my boards, and I spent like 2 months just trying to like figure it out. I had like a little bit of student loan money that I had been living off of. I had a little bit of that saved up. I'm like, okay, 2 months. I'm gonna figure out if this is doable. If it's not, I'll go get a job. And yeah, and so that's kind of where it started, and that was back in the spring. Here we are.
The spring of 2020. So
Never
this is
forget.
that's going on. You're trying to live on the last bit of money from your student loans. So you got pressure from everywhere. And this is a business where you're gonna like you have to see people like face to face. Man,
Yeah,
see right there. That where did you I mean, obviously that's gotta take courage and perseverance and discipline. Do you think that you throughout like your experiences in life were just prepared for that moment, or is there something that you were like at the time you're like, okay, I really need to summon this skill and I'm just gonna like acquire it as soon as possible, which I guess in a way is the skill of learning how to start and run a business.
right. It was more so I went back to like the logic of it, right? Like, okay, I need X. Like first, I just started with like, okay, how much money does Elliot need to survive? And I was like, okay, I need X amount of money to pay rent, pay groceries, and to be a normal human being. And like, okay, like developing how many people at what price point do I need to see, right? And so like the business of it, like you just like it's scary and like it's the unknown and things like that. But like when you take a deep breath and you just like look at the numbers like from a business perspective, like, okay, I need to see 10 people this week. So if I can do that, great. And then if not, whatever, right? So like it just worked down to like, okay, how, like, come hell or high water, how can I find 10 how can I convince 10 people who have a problem? How can I convince 10 people that I am the solution to their problem? And when you break it down, like each, week by week or whatever, right? Like say it's on Wednesday and I've seen my 10th person. I'm like, amazing. That's a huge stress relief. And now I can, like, Thursday and Friday, it is just bonus, right? And it's just taking, let's say I see 4 more people on that Thursday, Friday. Great. That's 4 extra, right? And so then like the next week, I only have to see 6 people to survive, right? And so then, and then, maybe I see another 14 people that week. So now I'm at, whatever that is, 28 people. Now the third week, I only see 2 people to survive, right? And it just kind of dwindles, right? And you just start building. And then the more people that you show that, hey, if I take the time on you, I can solve a problem. I can get you from point A to point B. And the more people you show that, like, hey, physical therapy, it works. I can help you get out of pain and get back to doing what you love to do. The more people you show that to, it's just a cycle, right? Like it compounds. And so then more people hear about you, more people understand what you're doing and how you can help them. And so that's kind of how it started, right? So at the very beginning, the scary part was just numbers. Like I can't think about any of the scary part. I can't think about like not seeing people. Like I'm just gonna figure out how I can see 10 people this week. Like when you break it down and make it really small, bite-sized goals, it got a lot less scary. And then once I started hitting those goals, I realized that, like, okay, this is manageable. I can do this.
And again, I just want to point out again, huge golden nugget there is small bite-sized goals that are going to get you to your bigger goal, because that's really the way
Yeah.
to go with anything that seems scary. I personally would say with creativity, it's like definitely going into the unknown regardless of what you're doing. Like in your case, you're creating this new business, going into the unknown, but that's like a great recipe for that journey is have a bigger goal, but only focus on those smaller bite size
The only way to
goals.
do it.
Definitely, man. So, as a physical therapist, like now you've been like practicing on your own for a
Yep.
year.
Yeah, a little less.
Okay. So, what do you think? Well, two questions. One, what do you think is like the most common injury that you see that could be like easily fixed if there is one? And then second, what is like the biggest lesson you've learned from this year? Like you obviously went in kind of with like thinking it would work a certain way, and now like what did you learn?
Hmm. Um, the the easy, the most easily, the fix that would come the easiest for most people. So if someone's coming to me, a large majority of the time they are in pain and they want to get out of pain. So there's typically not like a quick fix for any like physical issue. I'm having knee pain, you should do X, Y, and Z. Like that's you know
Buddy.
developing really cookie cutter programs like that is a great way to get people 60% better. So you have to kind of stray away from, hey, I know that if you do this type of squat, it will cure your knee pain, because everyone's different. So to answer your question, right, probably the quickest fix that I could tell people to help them get out of pain, because that's what the majority that I see, quickest fix, I actually would say, would just be to reframe what you think and what you feel like about pain. Like there's a lot of different joints, there's a lot of different muscles, tissues, injuries that can happen. They all involve pain. And so instead of trying to give you a quick fix for something specific, I think trying to reframe what we think we know about pain would be the most helpful. A lot of people believe that if your elbow hurts, there must be something structurally or physically damaged in the elbow. It makes sense logically. Like I believe that too before PT school. There's it's a very easy you know train of thought to go down. But what we are starting to learn, and like the research is very new still, but like what we're starting to learn is that pain is so much more than just tissue injury. It's so much more than just physical tissue damage, right? And so like there's a lot of examples of this, right? The probably the most prominent example is like people with like phantom limb, right? Like people who have lost a limb, and let's say this their arm, let's say it's their left arm, and they still like will years later after losing that limb will get very real pain in that phantom limb. And you're like, well, how does that happen? I thought pain only came from tissue damage. Well, in this case, the tissue's not even there. Like the pain has to be coming from somewhere else, right? And so like starting to kind of dive down that path and understanding that pain is so much more. It comes from the brain. It can be modified and altered and increased and decreased a lot of different ways, completely excluding the tissue or potential injury that someone might have. So then like understanding, right, like, okay, how do I fix this pain? Like that, all that information is great, Elliot, but like that doesn't help me, right? I still have my limbs. It's understanding that you the patient, you the person, can help your pain probably without me. Honestly, you can like maybe I can help you along the way, or maybe I can hey, give you a couple exercises that can strengthen you or something like that. But you can play so much bigger of a role in your rehab and getting yourself out of pain than you think you can, because there's so much more than just tissue damage, right? Sure, I went to school, I studied to be a doctor of physical therapy to help with the tissue damage side of things. That's only a small part of this game plan, right? And so that's what I feel like most people could learn about PT.
That's pretty awesome that, again, like that mindfulness component is showing up. It's like your attitude, your beliefs, like they're gonna play a huge part of it. And I think it's so cool that, there are people like you that are deciding to go against the grain and not do the industrialized PT, because that way you can have the time to really connect with people and offer them this information that otherwise, you wouldn't have the chance to. And that is beautiful, man. That is so, so awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So, going in as a new business owner, Corona happens. What do you think is like the biggest thing you learned through your first year as a business owner?
Um, that's a good question. That's a hard question.
Well,
Uh,
okay. If you don't feel ready to answer that, that's totally
no, I'm excited. Um, Man, I feel like I've learned so much. I learned a lot about taxes, that's for sure. Uh, I learned it really, so like during school, like you learn all about tissue anatomy, physiology. You learn how to be a physical therapist. You don't learn anything about business. So like that has been the biggest kind of the biggest steps that I've taken this year, right? Is learning how to start and learning how to develop a business into growth, right? Like I learned what Canva is. I learned what all these marketing things are, right? Like I've never spent this much time on my phone. I is learning how to design a website, learning how to do all these little things that come with operating a business. And now we're at a point where we're learning how to hire. So we're on today, February 1st, we are announcing that we are hiring a massage therapist and body worker. Her name's Katie. We literally just announced it like 3 hours ago. And dude, we are unbelievably excited. I knew I wanted to hire someone outside of physical therapy, right? Outside of kind of my really, really niche realm, but someone in the healthcare industry. And we had a lot of recommendations, but after talking with Katie, she believes the same thing, and she really, really knows her stuff when it comes to pain. And I just knew that she'd be an awesome addition to our team. And so, I mean, that's another thing that I've learned this year, right? Like, it all revolves around how to operate a business, how to hire, how to pay taxes, and all those things, right? So, like, it's been a lot of learning steps in that realm, as you know, and not so much physical therapy, right? Or like, you know, I already feel like I had a really good base of physical therapy, so it's the things I didn't know that have been kind of had the greatest impact this year.
That's such a beautiful like learning experience that you gifted yourself with by like having the courage to go for it. And now it's so awesome that you're kind of like growing your tribe, you know, and also
Yeah,
offering like a very like wellness minded practice and kind of rounding it up. Man, that's so cool. So we're coming up close to time here. I know that one of the things that you normally close with is take your health into your own hands, which I think is great because, I mean, in my personal experience with my health, I definitely took it for granted. And then I was like, oh man, like now I feel like I'm like in this path where I don't know how to get back to health and finding my way back. I'm not going to say it was easy because it wasn't, and it did require a lot of work, but ultimately I can say that every minute that I've spent working on it, or every dollar, whatever you, however you want to validate that energy that I put into it, has been worth it. And I think that's one of the very important reasons that I want to have people like you on this podcast, because I feel like in the creative community, there's this big archetype of the artist that is just not healthy, you know, whether it's financially, mentally, physically, like that is a huge archetype around in this community. And if you have any words or anything that you think that would really just inspire anyone out there who's might be struggling with their health to really do look at like taking it back.
yeah, yeah. So that's our big slogan here at Prime. It's own your health, right? It just comes back down to, you know, it's our core value. It's one of our major core values, and trying to take healthcare and, you know, take it off this like unreachable pedestal and just like giving it back to someone, right? Like, when someone goes to the doctor, a lot of times they don't feel listened to, they don't feel understood, they don't feel like they've been given enough time to really, you know, that healthcare provider like hasn't really spent enough time with them to really understand what they're going through. And I think that's a huge problem in our healthcare society today. I just want, you know, when I say own your health, like I just want people to understand that, hey, this is a lot more doable than you think it is, right? I say this all the time, like, the goal of physical therapy is to get you to stop doing physical therapy. Like, you know, like I want you to be able to learn and understand and know exactly what we are doing and why we are doing it, to help you reach point B, right? To help you reach your goals, right? If I as the doctor cannot teach you how to sustain what we are doing, then I haven't done my job, right? Like, if you were going to someone, you know, whether that be a therapist, chiropractor, whoever, if you're going to someone week in, week out, just to have them fix you, then you're missing the boat completely. You're missing the whole point of health. The point of health is so that we can, you know, do all the things that we want to do. We can be healthy, we can sustain it, and we can do it on our own, right? Like, if you're relying on someone to fix you, that's not health. Like, that's I don't know what that is. That's reliance, right? the goal of healthcare should be to empower the person to take health into their own hands and to teach them exactly what they need to do. And injuries happen. I get it. Shit happens. But the point is to empower that person to be able to be like, okay, I'm here, I'm hurt. What are the steps I need to take to get out of this hole that I'm in? Right. And so it goes back to like just spending time with people, right? Like if I'm a therapist who doesn't have time to spend with people, I probably can't educate them on how to do that themselves. But I'm fortunate enough to be in the situation where I am, where I can take 90 minutes, 2 hours, I can take as long as I want, trying to help you, trying to help the patient. Like, yeah, we're going to do the exercises, we're going to do the stretches, but I'm also going to teach you why we're doing it and how you can do this on your own. And we're going to game plan that so that it feels sustainable, so that you can own it. And so that it's not as scary, it's not as you understand what's going on with your body, all your questions are answered, and so that you can feel confident in if this ever were to happen again. Honestly, I know what to do. Like I have a good game plan for how to combat it and things like that. And so like when I say own your health, like that's what I mean. Like it just needs to be more, your health should be in your hands. Like we're trying to give healthcare back to you so that it is sustainable and something that really, really resonates with your goals.
That's beautiful. And I definitely, since I have worked with you personally, me as a patient, I know that that's exactly how I felt. Like ever since like the first appointment, that's definitely how I felt. So I thank you so much for being you, for doing what you do and doing it how you do it, man. And I really think, commend you for being such a rebel in your field. And I want to be super mindful of your time, but I'm so grateful that you're here, that you came and talked to us. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, Elliot.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
All right. I'll see you sometime soon.
Totally.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of Mindfully Curious. I hope that you found some of this content valuable. And if you did, I would love if you would share your perspective with me. You can leave a star review if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, or you can reach out and send your feedback through a DM on social media or using any of the interwebs portals that I have listed on show notes. On the show notes, you will also be able to find all of the information for today's guest. If you're interested in connecting with Elliot, you can find him on Instagram at prime.performance.rehab or on the interwebs at primeperformancerehab.com. And I will also link in show notes the resource for the personality test, the 16 personality test, the MBTI, or what have you. And since we're here, I just wanted to kind of do a refresher of what we learned during this episode. What I thought was one of the big takeaways for me is the importance of knowing yourself, because it sounds like if you know yourself, it's easier to make decisions and kind of know where you're steering the ship. Second, it helps to visualize the mission and always work on building skills and putting ideas into action. So by now you guys know that I'm super hype about creativity, and you know my perspective on the creative journey and how it kind of mirrors some of the steps of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. So that's kind of my map, and I love kind of pointing out those little steps throughout people's journeys when I'm talking to them, and I see that kind of like leaving a breadcrumb for yourself throughout your journey. Something that you will hear me talk about with probably all of the guests is about self-love and taking care of yourself. I really do believe that in order to have a, I don't want to say successful, but in order to be able to have energy to fuel your journey, you're gonna need that fuel. And the fuel that I found to be the best, the most sustainable, and the cleanest burning is love. And that may sound super cheesy, but I really do think that if you start by cultivating love within yourself, then you can just continue to grow that and apply that to everything and everyone that you encounter. So that is something that we're going to continue talking about. And as you guys know, I work hard to dispel the archetype, the myth of the unhealthy artist that is kind of haunted by creativity rather than blessed by it. Definitely trying to turn that frown upside down. And one of those big components is looking at your life in a holistic way. And by that, I mean just kind of look at all the different dimensions. At least you gotta acknowledge that as a human being, you have a mind, a body, and a soul. So kind of will be pointing out resources to have a healthy mind, like mindfulness, have a healthy body, like health, and how mindset can really help you in this health journey, like we just talked with Elliot. And then soul. How do you connect with your soul? And what is your soul? It might sound kind of woo-woo, but at the end of the day, I feel like soul just, to me, means who I really am at my core. What are my gifts? What are the things that I can contribute in the world? And how do I do that? That's what I think is my soul. It's what I love and what I'm here to work for and make more of and what's not. Again, for me, that is creativity. And creativity is going to be involved in everybody's mission in one way or another, but it doesn't have to be yours per se. And these conversations and most of my content is going to be aimed towards helping you do just that. Well, super excited to see you next week. Next week's episode is going to be a conversation with Wyatt Haggerty, who makes music under the name Just Like You Imagined. He talks about his creative journey with his newest album he just put out, and actually his first full album that he just put out called Crown. If you like spicy beats and you want to take a peek deep behind a musician's creative journey, then you will love this episode. Once again, thank you for your time, for your attention. Don't forget to reach out. I would love to hear from you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Until next time, stay well.